have you been exposed to racism, and what do you know about those type of stories?
Yeah, I experienced it growing up a lot. You know, the 7/7 bombings that happened in London, being a Muslim, stereotypes started, you know, the racial attacks that were upon, you know, even me being so young at the time was quite catastrophic.
So racism inside the professional cricket realms is still rife and still alive.
In the first game of the season, it got quite messy. No names given, but yeah, there was a lot of personal abuse and also racial abuse. I also went and played in the Kashmir Premier League, which is a region between Pakistan and India, which is currently in dispute. So when I went out to play there, it was a red zone. And BCCI said a few weeks before it that if any cricketer goes and plays in the Kashmir Premier League, they're not allowed to come and do no work within India.
Junaid Nadir is a professional cricketer as well as an entrepreneur, and he founded a brand called Coastline Cricket. We also talk about some controversial subjects such as racism inside cricket. Be happy, never content, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Right, welcome back to the podcast, Steve Sully Study. This is actually quite an emotional day for us because this is going to be the last podcast that we are doing, interview in this room in Soho at Woodbury House, and I've got a fantastic guest in front of me. So how we're going to title you is a pro cricketer but also an entrepreneur, someone that has established a brand called Coastline Cricket League. Is that correct? So Junaid Nadir, welcome on board the podcast, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Steve, for having me in such an honourable place. And, you know, for the last one, you know, thank you. It means a lot as well. And hopefully, you know, this will be an emotional one, just not for us, but also the viewers watching for sure.
Perfect. So I do want to talk about Coastline. I want to talk about your entrepreneurial journey. And you're only a very young man. You're 26 years of age. I'm 36 and I feel like an old man. But to be 26, to have all the accolades and all the achievements that you've done so far, to be a pro cricketer, to have a really good social following as well, but also have ambitions to develop this Coastline Cricket brand into a global phenomenon. I mean, you've got the world at your feet at the moment, mate. So I do want to hear about the journey. Before I do, I'm a big believer that sometimes adversity, sometimes pain, and sometimes a global problem or a cultural problem is the catalyst to start something great. And you see it all the time. You know, a single mum that was poor, you know, struggling, she suddenly comes up with this concept and becomes a self-made millionaire or a business person because of all the pain she was going through. Or there's a problem in this sector and someone who's working in that sector comes up with a solution and becomes a very successful person off the back end of it. At the end of the day, the reason why a lot of people become super uber successful is because they figure out a problem and then they obviously come up with the concepts and they turn it into a brand or a business. And that's what I feel that you're doing. So let's talk about the grassroots of you, where you're from, what you've achieved, what you've done, and some of the reasons why you set up this brand called Coastline Cricket.
Yeah, so look, that's a very kind introduction, and you know, it's come from a place of, I think, like you said, it's always pain, it's suffering, it's somewhere comes from emotion. I think that's where most of your successful people, like you said, even in the athletes' world, in sports and cricket, like some of the stories we have of our ambassadors of Coastline, and I'm sure hopefully we'll get them down to do a podcast with you as well, is that, you know, some of these guys have had really humble and tough beginnings, and they've gone and conquered the world of cricket on an international scale and played in the World Cups, won World Cups, and you're just like, wow. So, you know, it's a place of hunger. And from what I believe is, you know, heartbreaks, you know, being broke, or, you know, coming from a place of real hurt. I think that's where, you know, and a person's drive comes from. And then when you then look into then the global side of things as well, it's, you know, what I've seen in cricket and in the political world of just sports as well as cultural things, there is a lot of things that we need to correct with this. And I believe, you know, Nelson Mandela was a big believer of it as well when he started saying that sport is a healer. It's something that can be used to, you know, signify peace and put out a statement to the world. You know, if you look in the World War II, and they used football to, you know, England and Germany took a break and played a game of football against each other. Symbolizing things through that is very powerful. So we're going to be using cricket for that. But we're also encompassing like entertainment. So it's going to be 2-in-1 sort of thing. So it's an enjoyment, but the mission statement within it comes from a painful place. Now, from myself, I'm Southeast London born and bred and raised, and it's being a British Muslim growing up in the times of being born in the 90s, in 96. So, when the 9/11 attacks happened, a lot of things changed for the society of world, right? It was a world changing event. The 7/7 bombings that happened in London, being a Muslim, stereotypes started, the racial attacks that were upon, even me being so young at the time was quite catastrophic. However, it's a case that where even at such a young age, I had to adapt it into two ways. It was life, it's two ways you go. So, I remember I went into the playground when the 7/7 bombings happened, and my birthday is on the 7th of the 7th as well. So quite ironic. And, kids are quite innocent and quite playful. So when they say things, it might not necessarily come from a ill-mannered place, but it's quite, front on, dare we say. So I went into the playground, and I was, young as I could remember. And when you line up before you go into the school, I was standing there, and one of the kids tapped me on the back and goes, "Oh, did you see what happened? These London, the bombings happened. Was that a birthday present to you?" And I was like, how am I going to take this now? And I just turned around, and I remember to myself, I can either, it's flight or fright, right? You go into a mode where I could either turn around and slap him, or I actually laughed it off, to be honest with you. I was like, that was quite funny that he's actually got the intelligence to deliver such a joke at that age. I was like, and that was my mind and processing at such a young age. And I was like, okay, cool, no problem. And I went into school, and it bothered me for a bit. And I remember going home, talking to my parents about this. And it's not even nice for the parents to even hear that their son is going into school and experience such a thing. So it's more than just the personal connection. This is what I've established and learned in the whole process of getting into Coastline. Seeing how it's not just affected me, but the people around myself. And I continued in what I was doing. I was playing cricket from the ages of 5. So, let's take it back to when I was born, basically. I was born with a severe medical condition called croup, which is a severe case of asthma, which basically is a permanent asthma attack. And I had that for the basically first year and a half of my life, when I was pretty much not even allowed out of the hospital. So, and actually when I was born, the doctors were like, no, he's got no chance of basically surviving it. My grandfather, who's no longer here anymore, may God rest his soul in peace, he was the one who was a believer. He was like, no, he'll fight through this. And so I did. Went on to continue this journey. And when I was 3 years old, I can still remember my mother, she couldn't even open the doors or the windows to the house because any sort of fresh air or sort of pollen would trigger my asthma attack. And I remember as young as like being 3-4 years old, I used to be able to, I knew how to put the nebulizer on myself, which is a, oxygen sort of thing that you used to set up back then. And I remember I used to wake up and not disturb my parents and just go in and into the kitchen and set myself up and put myself on. And a kid at that age shouldn't be doing that for themselves, right? And I was like, okay, cool. So I had a very tough, missed a lot of school as well because of that, and growing up in that side of things. So I was like, okay, this is not easy. And it was not hard. It was not easy for my mother either, because to see her, baby in that sort of condition and so forth, it was not easy for her. She had to sacrifice, I have 3 older siblings and time with them and stuff. So there is a whole effect within not just oneself, but the family. And this is what people don't seem to understand, that there is a whole diverse connect within the people. Now, I ended up having a lot of energy because I was just young. I was staying in home a lot of the time. So my parents, I just used to watch cricket a lot. My dad, just in a Pakistani household and community, cricket is a big sport. So I just carried on watching that, and I used to pick up anything that I could find, a bat or a ball, and used to run around the house and smash up the house and just try and play the sport, not knowing that, where my life would end up taking me. By the age of 5, I played my first cricket match for Greenwich under 10s. So I was playing with kids twice my age. and we're pretty much twice my size. And, battling 2 years ago with severe croup and asthma attacks consistently, to now come out onto a cricket field was the biggest accomplishment. And at 5 years old, to actually have the physical ability to go and play a cricket match is one thing. So if you look at, I see kids now at 5, 6 years old, and they're not even physically developed to a stage where they can do the things that we are capable of in that in those areas. But there are some who are extremely developed. So there is an imbalance that I see nowadays, which was a bit different then. So when I went onto the pitch, people actually laughed at my parents and myself. Like, my run up is like 25 yards. So I'm walking down the pitch, and, and they're like, where's this little kid going? He's having a laugh. He can't be doing nothing. And I ran in and then bowled and took 4 wickets in that game and won the match. And the parents, and I still remember when my parents were telling me this, and they told me this story a few months ago. They were like, we saw the parents were looking at us, they were laughing, like, where's this kid going? And then they saw 1 wicket go, then they saw the next wicket go, and then they started looking at us like, is that your son? And he was like, yeah. They were like, wow, we've not seen anything like that. And for my mum, I still remember when I came off that pitch that day, she was in tears. Because she saw, and I thought she was happy, I thought it was happy tears, because I took 4 wickets. It might have been, but yeah, it was obviously a proud moment for her, because her son a few years ago wasn't even breathing properly. And now he's come out, played his first match, and just set almost the world on fire. The very next year, when I turned 6, I was selected for Kent. So one of the youngest cricketers ever in the county history to be selected at that age and to play. And I'm very fortunate that I've had amazing coaches who've had belief in me from a young age. I've had also coaches who have not also believed in me and caused problems. But, for those ones at my early ages, I give them so much love and respect. I almost see them as my cricket father, because without them giving me that opportunity, I would never be here today, sat in front of you today.
Yeah. What a great story so far, mate. So I've got written down here, Essex, and also you're playing for Kent as a pro cricketer. I know you've got ambitions and you've got a focus on developing this brand, and we're going to talk about the broadcasting rights and stuff you've been doing in Dubai, etc. But cricket, what you've achieved so far and playing, is that still something at the forefront of your mind? You want to continue being a pro athlete, or is it something that is a former chapter and you're going into a new part of your life?
Look, that's something that's it's a good question. I think, now sports is a thing of age shouldn't be a factor anymore. Now, you look around the sporting circle, I'm sure it's a similar thing within boxing rooms, football, cricket. If you've not made it by 25, you're not playing or you've not taken a pay-per-view bout, or you're not playing Premier League football, or you've not played England cricket, let's say, your time's over. You go find something else to do. I don't think that's the case. This year, I think I've played the best cricket I have, and I'm in the best sort of position I've ever been in terms of my playing ability. Then when I was like 17, 18 at my prime, when I set, Kent records, which we'll come on and talk about. But where I am now, and I think a lot of it's to do with mindset. I've learned the game, I've learned where I am at, and I know my strengths to accomplish what I can do. I've had a serious season. I've been bowling quicker than I've almost ever bowled. I'm batting like I've never batted before. I'm fielding like I've never fielded before. So I do believe, and I still believe, I've got a lot to give into the game and to continue to go on. Now, there is a systematic problem within cricket, hence why I'm doing this thing, Coastline Cricket, because not just myself, I've seen it amongst my peers, my sisters, my siblings, and other international establishments. And you will hear these things as we go along through the journey of Coastline. There is a lot of issues, whether you want to call it institutional, whether you want to call it political. There is a system that we live in, not just within cricket, but in society, that it's quite complex. So, yeah, I would love to continue to still play. I think there's some great, inspiring stories, especially within the rooms of cricket. There was an Australian who played in the Test series in the Ashes against England last year. And he debuted at the age of like 32, 33 as a fast bowler, and that's unheard of. And he ripped through England, and he's been a good find. So I've been written off a few times in my journey, in my career, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But I've always come back, and I've always found ways to, and I think coming back to the whole message of where these things come from, it's like when someone knocks myself down or says anything, or you can't achieve it, you can't do it, it almost spurs me on to make sure that I prove that individual wrong.
Yeah. The thing about sport, I think, whether it's boxing, football, cricket, no matter what sport, I think we can all, no matter our race, no matter our background, no matter how wealthy we are, our gender, our beliefs, etc., we can all admire a good sports person, because even if that sports person is not the very, very best in the world, that hunger to strive and be better, to break records and to compete, and actually put their own reputation online, and sometimes even their own life on the line with certain sports, you can really admire it. And I think from the sports person point of view, I certainly know this, boxing myself, the traits that you develop, that winning instinct, you can transfer that into other parts of your life, including business. And I think it's such an important thing for kids to figure out and to be exposed to when they're younger, because you don't realise how much it's going to help you with your confidence moving forward in life. And I think that connection needs to be honed in a lot more. When a kid is playing rugby, football, cricket at school, the school needs to put the message to them that this is not just good for your physical well-being and emotional, and the having a social network off the back end of this sport, but also the things you're going to learn by playing this and working together as a team is going to put you in good stead later on in your life. And I don't think that connection is said enough. It's either, here's business and here's sport. In actual fact, no, they're connected in many ways. The mindset, I've had it plenty of times where I know plenty of people at my school were so much more smart than me. I want to use this quite loosely. It's not because it's not true. It's just because sometimes I challenge myself because of the title. But in 2018, I was going through a certain scenario, and I had to get put through a test, and I was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. And so I've had that for all my life, and I'm not ashamed of it, because I actually understand that sometimes when someone's got that, you actually heighten other skills. Yeah. So there are plenty of people at my school far much more clever than I am. Like, they are uber smart, very, very sharp individuals, but they never set foot outside of the 9 to 5, maybe because they're worried, or maybe because they couldn't make a connection. Whereas myself, I knew I couldn't really work for anybody because it's just not the way I'm programmed. And I knew I had to get in business for myself. And I knew part of the reason why I made that jump is because of boxing and because of sport in itself. I used to play rugby, football, etc., squash. But boxing itself was the one that gave me the business mindset in order to push forward, even when you feel like your back is up against the ropes. And no doubt cricket's done the same thing for you.
100%. Look, I'm really glad you talked about that, because I don't think people understand this or is spoken about much within sporting rooms, and it is so powerful. Now, cricket and boxing, there is a lot of similarities across it. I've done a bit of boxing and sparring, and because I can't encompass it within cricket, it's a great crossover. There's a lot of, that fighting position stance is almost the batting position and bowling position and the explosiveness. But what I admire with boxing so much is that, again, putting it into life, it is so powerful. Now, you go for a 6 months camp, people go for 9 months camps, people do 3 months camps, and then you're waiting for this one moment. If these 30 minutes that is your moment, but you've done all of that for just this moment. Now, again, with Coastline itself, it's now coming to fruition. Now people starting to know about it, and the exposure's there. But it was all of that journey. It's been like 16 months in the making. But then before that 16 months, it's been my 20 years of cricket before that. So yeah, there is this end product, you know, you see these super brands and whatever, but again, it comes through to cricket. Now myself, you know, with cricket as it is, it's quite interesting, similar to boxing, but it's a bit more forgiving, but also unforgiving at the same time. You got a lot of opportunities to go again, like being a bowler. You know, you've got 6 balls to bowl at a batsman. You can bowl a minimum of 10 overs or 4 to 10 or even unlimited overs a day. I mean, test cricket. As a batsman, you've got one chance. If you get out, you're in the change room and you're there all day. But that batsman, and every batsman who goes out to bat, whether he's batting at number 1 or number 11, he wants to score 100. Whether, you know, you speak to a number 11 batsman, I want to score 100. It's everybody's goal. That's like getting, you know, a knockout clean, right? In that respect, they work towards that. Does it always happen? It will probably happen. You know, some of the greats. Hence why you see the greats that they are now. It will happen consistently. But 75% of people, you'll get a 50 or 100 once every 3 or 4 games, maybe 5 games. What that teaches you in life is that, you know, we work towards something, we're involved in it. Now you apply it like, you know, let's look at test cricket. It's over 5 days. You know, for the average working person, it's Monday to Friday. It's 5 days. In those 5 days, you're going to be, you know, go counter so many things. You're going to be on top. You're going to be on, you know, in defeat. You can come back again, and you can also go back into defeat. But you have opportunities within that to go again. So you can bat twice and you can bowl twice. Hopefully the weather will be okay. All of these factors, but that's like it in life as well. You know, you want the weather to be good, but, you know, you might have a long walk to the station and it's raining one day. You know, these are the things that make us who we are. So we have to apply these things, like you said, through life. And that's why I think myself and yourself, you know, it's very powerful what we've done and what we're doing, because we've used sports as a factor to drive what we're doing. And when people, you know, even play sports as a recreational thing with friends socially, the competitiveness, the winning and losing part to it, I think everybody should have it involved in their life, because it's good for one, mental health, getting away from things. You know, sometimes when I don't play cricket or I don't train, and I'm sure you probably feel it as well, you can start feeling a certain negative way. Once you start playing, or you go into the gym, or you hit your pads, or you smash a few balls, yeah, wow, I feel amazing again. Then you go back into your work, you know, or whatever you're doing, and you're flying again. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with what this point is. But I think everybody should really, you know, look to have sports as a way of life as well.
Definitely. So, the drive behind Coastline Cricket, my understanding, listening to some of your other interviews, and obviously doing a bit of research and get to know you a bit more, is it's a different approach to cricket and more inclusion. And if we take it all the way back, the conversation that we had before, this is not just about it, but this is definitely a factor that Pakistan and also India, I didn't realise this because, one, I've never visited these wonderful countries, and two, cricket, I've got to be honest, is not been a sport that I've been exposed to as much growing up. But I know it's definitely a massive following. There's so many people that play it. So many people vouch for the culture of cricket. And when I do think of cricket, I do think of Pakistan, I do think of India, and certain key, you know, countries around the world who are phenomenal at playing this particular sport. But I didn't realise there was actually a bit of a barrier between Pakistan and India. And you gave me a bit of a sort of education, historical lesson behind it. So can you share with me again how that divide happens, the history of it, and why you feel that Coastline Cricket, the league, is a perfect kind of solution to bring that back together?
Sure. Now, you got to take it back to the very beginning and to the start of history. Now, yeah, cricket, you know, it's an English sport. It got taken over to India and Pakistan when the British colony went over, and they started playing it with their workers, and, you know, they started enjoying the sport. So it goes back to those years, and very, very old sport. You know, it's cricket is the second largest sport in the world. It's got over 2.5 billion fans around the world.
And if I could interject, I mean, who would you say are the leaders? You got India, Pakistan, West Indies? No,
so there's the top four, they call them the top four. So it's Australia, England, India, and then Pakistan falls into it. No, not even Pakistan. There is another one, a super house into it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry. So yeah, it's really controlled. So you have a structure called the ICC, which is the ICC Cricket Council, who is supposed to be the, like the WBC, the governing body on top of it. However, I think it's quite apparent and quite publicly, recognized that the BCCI, which is the Indian Cricket Board, are on top of and are in charge of basically all of it. So they're the powerhouse because of the IPL. Now, again, going back to the history of it, cricket was taken there in the times where India and Pakistan was one country. Now, the reason why cricket is one of the biggest sports in the world is because you have 1 point whatever billion people in India, and you've got 200 plus million people in Pakistan. So you've already got 1.5 billion people there, or maybe even 2 billion. So yeah, that is probably a driving factor to it. And yeah, there is obviously a political tension. Now, before it was divided, it was called Hindustan. It wasn't even called India or Pakistan, or it was none of that. So it was under which is a Hindu regime, which is kind of it is to an extent now, but it's a bit politically diverse in that sense. Now, when the division and when the partition happened, there was a lot of deaths, a lot of things that happened while it happened, and my grandparents were part of that, and I was as sure as many, because it wasn't that long ago, and in that time they drew this border between India and now they're called now the new India and now new Pakistan. They caused the split and division where now the Sikh community within that, there is also a temple in Lahore and also in Punjab, India side. So Punjab was split into two, where you have Punjab also in Pakistan and also in India. Now, there is a Sikh temple within Pakistan, Lahore, which is probably about no longer than a 20-minute drive from the Pakistan-India border, which I have been to, and very cheekily stuck my toe over the border with the security looking. But yeah, and it goes to this fact that you see when they have these things, and it only recently Imran Khan, he opened the borders, the actual Wagah border that is called there, for Sikhs to come, with open arm entry, to come and complete their pilgrimage, as they say. When you've done this to a nation who are very spiritually embedded, if you look at the cultures, Sikhism, Hinduism, Islam, if you put, being British Muslim and born and raised, I've been exposed to all of them. So I have friends from all backgrounds, British, Hinduism, Sikhism, atheists, whatever. We're exposed to all of it, and you can, really have a, unification amongst this. But with sports now, okay, now you're going to politics. There is a big political tension between Pakistan and India. I also went and played in the Kashmir Premier League, which is a region between Pakistan and India, which is currently in dispute. So when I went out to play there, it was a red zone. And, it got to the stage where the BCCI, the Indian Cricket Board, refused people to go and play in this event, stating that if you go and play in the Kashmir Premier League, any cricketers, there was a long list of cricketers waiting around the world to go to this. The BCCI said a few weeks before it that if any cricketer goes and plays in the Kashmir Premier League, they're not allowed to come and do no work within India at all. Like no cricketing stuff at all. Yeah, no way. You have no chance. Crazy. You just think to yourself, Kashmir is its own sort of region. It's got nothing to do with those you two. You're stopping somebody from earning an opportunity for themselves because of political tension. Don't make sense to me. Sports. They're trying to promote the area of Kashmir, showing peace. Kashmir is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Now, check it on my socials, the videos and the stuff that I put up there. It's literally, when I was out there, people are like, are you in Switzerland? It looks like you're in the Alps. I'm in Kashmir. And people think of these places, like if you've not heard of it, you're thinking, what would it be like? Is it run down? It is one of the most beautiful places in the world I've ever seen. Unreal. I've done Alps, I've done a road trip to the Alps and all of these things. it has to be up there with one of the best and most beautiful places in the world. It recently went under floods, as you've seen in Pakistan, which has been quite catastrophic. But you know, people don't even know, like, a third of the world's glaciers are held in Pakistan's mountains. Pakistan's one of the only countries that you have 4 seasons in the country at the one time. You got one part it's snowing, it's icy, it's mountainous, and the other part it's like 40, 50 degrees scorching in the same sort of region. And it's just like, wow, people don't understand how, you know, the world is a beautiful place. Why are we fighting over it when, you know, I'm a person who, you know, I even went to Kashmir. So prior to that, going back to my cricketing journey, I did an event with the Lahore Qalandars, which is a massive team in Pakistan. So they're like a Man City equivalent, dare I say, in Pakistan. Went and played a tournament with them, and one of the regions we went to was Kashmir. This was the first time like professional cricket was played in Kashmir after like 20, 30 years. And this was before the Kashmir Premier League. And this was just a trial to see if it could be safe enough, if it could be done. It was almost a, you know, tempting of an event. The reception was phenomenal. Like, this was before COVID as well. So the crowds were packed. Rows were packed. I was like, I must have been 18, 19 at the time. Maybe 20 at the very max. I was like, wow. Like, this is incredible. I had the opportunity to come to a part of Pakistan where even like people that I know in Pakistan, family that I have there, and friends and family have never even been there. I'm a British-born national who's going as an overseas to Pakistan and then going to a region that people sitting in that country have never seen or been to. And wow, what an opportunity that was. And, you know, I got to take my parents came with me as well. So I got to show them a part of the world that, you know, many people may never see.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you kind of, in 2022, certainly in the last 5-10 years, you almost expect that the whole world is an open place, that no matter what walk of life you are from, religion, etc., you can go to. And when you hear about the segregations in different parts of the world, it's kind of mad, like the restrictions because of beliefs, political tension, etc. So going back to it, so India and Pakistan, they are divided now. They used to be as one, but what was the main reason? Was it because of religious beliefs?
Yes.
So Sikhs and Hindus.
Yep. And Muslim. So there was a massive Muslim community within that, which they made for Pakistan, where they said, this will be your land, this will be your land. And, you know, everyone just be at peace, not knowing what they were really doing.
Buddhism, is that involved anywhere?
No, they were quite peaceful. It was mainly the Islamic religion and the Hinduism were at a massive war. And, you know, there's been stuff recently in the press with stuff in India, and there's, you know, stuff against, you know, Muslims that were happening out there, and there's still ongoing. And now religion has always been a cause of a factor and whatever, but actually should be a symbolization of peace. Like Islam, the word Islam translates to the word peace. Now, when people start, and, you know, Sikhism are very peaceful, and you know, my Hindu friends I've seen very peaceful. So they use the word religion as a political way to cause attention, to create conflict, when there is necessarily not actually even the fact. It's a very ancient way of thinking. We're in a modern society. It's a 20 world, you know, we're in the, you know, 2023 now, going into, you know, it's crazy times just flying off like this. People and things need to be able to adapt and change. And I think now, if you look around and see the energy, especially post-COVID, everybody's on a connection, like wants to, you know, they value things a bit more about life and experiences, traveling the world now and making things count and giving love to each other, because we've seen now, like, you know, the world can change just like that. So, you know, if you look at just recently the Cricket World Cup that's happened, when Pakistan and India play each other, do you know they only ever play each other in World Cups? They do not play each other outside in any sports, really. You will never see a Pakistan team or an India team playing any sports rather than a World Cup event or the Olympics per se. It's ridiculous that you're stopping two nations to compete in a sport because of political tension. Politics is here. sports is here. Two separate things. Hence why we are looking to make that driving force to make that change and showcase that we're going to have, for the first time in international cricket and stage to the world, both male and female players from both Pakistan and India sharing the pitch, both in the same team and to compete against each other. And to be honest with you, no one can stop me because I'm a third party entity and we've got governing body supports and we've nailed everything. And, you know, that is the mission and statement that we're going to put out. And this is simple as that.
Yeah. Sounds like you got a good momentum and a good amount of people behind you, and some iconic personnels in your sector of cricket are noticing what you're doing, which is quite clear to see. Aren't you ever a little bit fearful of playing devil's advocate that one of the countries will say, right, if you go and play in this league, you're going to be banned from coming back, or you're going to be restricted living where you're living because you've gone against the grain and you've gone against our wishes? Is there any concern like that?
For me, that's not a concern. That's a beautiful factor. I'm waiting for someone to do that, because then I can point the finger and say, look, here we go. Exactly what I'm saying is factually happening in front of you. I'm putting something on for the better of people and opportunities for the world, not to showcase myself. I'm showcasing your own country to show the peace, the signification of, you know, symbolization of peace and unity. If they want to pull their players out or say this and that, the other, people are going to be evidently knowing that there is something corrupt within that system. And so they've got to be careful on how they approach these things.
Yeah, definitely. So more about the business then. You mentioned about free to any nation to play, basically. Is that right?
Yep.
Female and male playing together. And am I right in saying it's going to be on beaches as well?
Yeah. So beach cricket's happened once before, and our ambassadors, Jonty Rhodes and Courtney Walsh, also played in this one back in 2007 in Australia. That was pre-social media. That was pre all of this cricket hype that we have now. And it was a great success. And I remember watching it on TV. I was like, this is amazing. Like, who doesn't love a beach holiday? Like, when I go on holiday, I'm just trying to find a beach wherever I can go in the world. So you put the two and two together. Now, you know, these cricketers that we have on board, such as, you know, Jonty Rose, Courtney Walsh, and many more to come, and I'll speak more about those, is that they are the icons of the game. Like, when I mean legends, like Courtney Walsh was the first person to take 500 test wickets in the world in history. He was the first person to go past that barrier. And the other people have gone past him and surpassed his record, but, you know, records are there to be broken, but he was the first. So he's known as like the big godfather, dare we say, within cricket. And what a gentleman he is. You know, for him to give me his time before and support this and literally be our ambassador, because he's also the head of West Indies women cricket, which is fantastic for our mission statement. And, you know, being it in the 2023 now, it's going to be very powerful with the message of, you know, combining female sports within it. So now, female side of cricket, you know, the Women's World Cup that happened earlier on this year, 2022, was the most watched female sporting event in women's sporting history, at 1.5 billion viewers throughout the whole World Cup, top to every number, showing massive improvements. Now, the legends are not playing no more. They don't have an opportunity to play. There are some legends leagues that are going on, but it's a bit, dare I say, Mickey Mouse. This, being on the beach, allows them to make it competitive. Now, as you know, when you retire, you may not be able to you know, do those things that you once were able to, you know, on the cricket field. So playing football, you know, you see these legend games that even in football, it's nice to see them on the pitch, but they're not able to do it on such a big, you know, just big pitches, you know, they're not small. Putting it on a beach then makes it feasible and, you know, an even playing field for all players. So it will be like I'm not going to say too much, let people watch in and tune in for that. But yeah, the playing field is quite even, and it's going to be competitive, because, you know, opposite wants to get out to each other or seeing the ball get hit for 6 or whatever. So you imagine you see one of the girls smash Courtney Walsh for a 6 into the ocean. That's going to go viral, right? On, your TikToks and these things, but it's going to be a very competitive, because he doesn't want to have that happen to him, and she wants to do that to him. So there's that edge on that side of it as well. And if you speak to them, the females, they're like, Junaid, we've never even had the opportunity to think about meeting these guys. And now you're giving us an opportunity to meet with them, share the picture with them, and gain knowledge from them to help improve their game. Because as you know, within sports, yes, playing is a lot of it, training is a lot of it, but learning and knowledge between one another is also very, very powerful. So it's something that's never been seen before, never been done before. And being coastline cricket, now hence where this is quite powerful. The name coastline cricket is a neutral name. Coastline cricket will be starting off in Dubai and then following suit into Brazil. We've also in conversation with other nations around the world to drop it into their coastline. The only other cricketing event in the world that is able to go around the world is the ICC World Cup. But we're not competing with that. That is a main professional elite event. This is a fun environment, competitive. It's a beach holiday, 2 weeks. If you want to go on a holiday, come down to coastline cricket, sit down on a beach, meet some great cricketers, live entertainment, encompassing with the greatest hotels. It's a win-win for all parties. So you put these three together, it's something that's never been seen or done before within cricket. Hence why we're able to attract the names that we're able to attract, the brands that we've able to be attracting. Now, if you look at the IPL, Indian Premier League, PSL, Pakistan Super League, CPL, Caribbean Premier League. What's the one common thing within those three? Nations. India, Pakistan, Caribbean. It's fixated in their countries and specifically for their people. So, yourself might not be specifically wanting to watch it because I'd have no direct connect. So you're segregating people just by the name. This is unification. There is no barrier. Anybody from any part of the world. So we have Roberta Avery. She's the Brazilian women's captain. Brazil cricket team. Yes, they do have a cricket team, and they've actually growing pretty quickly now. A population of 200 million people who are so big in football, volleyball, and all these other sports. Having them now opening up the market of cricket to them, beach is a huge culture for them. Sports, beach sports. You put all of these three things into one, it's like you've never seen before.
Yeah, it's exciting. So you mentioned to me about like the people backing and the broadcasting, etc., and some big profile brand ambassadors. Could you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's been a crazy journey, I tell you, because a couple of months ago, people were like, you're 26 years, 25 when I was 24, 25 when I started the idea and started it. 26 I was this year. People everyone's senior to me. I've never, every meeting I've been in with, I've sat down in, and anything that I've done within Coastline, I've always been the youngest in the room. In the last 12, 16 months, I've always been the youngest in the room. Never have I, stated it, or do I care about it, to be honest with you. I think age is just a number. But people, some seniors and some people have said, what do you know? What are you going to do? You won't be able to even get one broadcaster on board. You're crazy. And some very high profile people from even the boxing world as well said, you won't be able to get even one broadcaster, or you're not going to be able to get no governing bodies behind you, or this and that. Somewhat believed them. I was like, maybe they're right, but I'll give it a crack. And by the grace of God, I worked hard and found my ways of making this work. So the first broadcaster that we signed and secured is a 3-year partnership deal with Sportsmax, which is in the Caribbean, the biggest sports channel within the Caribbean. It's all in the 27 plus islands. That's Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, you name it, all of them. For me, again, it's their culture. Beach is their culture, right? We've got some of the biggest names from them. To sign a 3-year deal with them for Coastline Cricket was a huge, huge step in a massive direction, because I still remember I was emotional, and I did break a tear because, you know, people doubted me and said you will never be able to do it. No one believed in me. People slept on me. People let go of the belief. But thankfully for the great team that I have, core team, who've believed in the mission, who've supported me the whole way and believed in the mission with me, you know, cricketers included, I'm most humbled and most honored to be in this position to have such a great support network who have allowed me to deliver this because of the mission statement. You know, it was that moment for us, myself and Coastline was heaps and bounds, because now it gave me opportunities to convert conversations with other people quite easily. It's just like anything. One person jumps on board, it's a walking train ship, right? It's a herd of sheep. Then we managed to secure one in the North America region, USA and Canada, by the name of Willow TV. They're the biggest cricket distributors in the North American region. They have over 5 million plus subscribers, both digitally and on television. They're in 3 million plus households, where they have average of 3 people per house. And in the Caribbean, Sportsmax are in across 2.5 million households with also 3 people per household. So our reach within just those 2 regions is in excess of 11 million people. Talk to me 6 months ago, I didn't have one. And now I've got a total reach of 11 million. Whoa. Wait, someone stop me for a minute. But we haven't stopped just there. We have ongoing conversation with other broadcasters around the world and major houses. I won't publicate anything that just yet. Stay tuned on the socials. You'll be able to see all of that. Most honored and humbled to have even the conversations with these people. I never went to university or got an education in how to do all of these things. But by the grace of God and, with an amazing team around me, I can only be very thankful that we've been able to secure these things and even start having conversation with these things. I remember one of our meetings that we had with our broadcasters, it was 30 minutes to the dot. Our first, it was a virtual meeting as well, power of Zoom as well, and it's amazing. 30 minutes to the dot. We said hello, said bye-bye in those 30 minutes. So probably 20 minutes negotiation conversation with our broadcaster. A couple of people on their side, a couple of people on our side sitting on their silent. The deal was secured. People come off the call, people were like, my seniors in our team are, elderly and very experienced and very, very knowledgeable and are very influential people. We're like, wow, you've managed to deliver that. Wow. Like, what if you're going crazy? This is crazy. It was amazing. And like, I sometimes don't, I know I'm just in like a sort of train mode at the moment where I don't notice these things, but you look back and you just like, that's pretty surreal.
Yeah, made it happen, which is incredible. So the ambitions for Coastline Cricket, from a business point of view, is it something that you want to float, something you want to sell, something you want to get investment into? Where are you at with it?
Yeah, so look, we're selling teams and opportunities. There's sponsorship opportunities as well. Look, like, we've got 11 million plus reach just already, and we're expanding. So it's massive opportunities for sponsors. We're going to be opening up teams. We've actually opened up franchise teams for sale. One of them's been sold, and hopefully that publication will come out with that. When that comes out, will be pretty huge, with the name of caliber of people that are getting on board. So it's enticing for people to come on board, own a team, which is a business then within Coastline. So people can come on board as if you're owning, like a Chelsea football team or an NFL team. You are able to now build that brand. So, say, Steve, you come in and buy a team, you want to call it X, Y, and Z. You build your kit, your merchandises, you part of your ticket sales. There's prize money within the event. There is revenues to be made externally with having the players in board, whatever you're able to create. You're going to have your own kit, so you're able to generate your own sponsorship. We might have Tom over here who's able to generate 100 grand on a sponsorship, but you might have a better connect and a more wider range of reaching people. You might be able to generate 200 grand, maybe even millions. Who knows? There is no limitation on this. So it's quite exciting for people coming on board, because like I said, this is a brand that's going to be traveling around the world. So it's not just you're selling, you're not a Manchester City, that you're a team based in Manchester. You're going to be going all around the world and having people. So if you make good quality kit, get good names on board, like, we're not just onboarding these cricketers, we've got celebrities on board. So we're reaching out to people in other backgrounds of sports, other areas, to bring in more reach and more diversity. It's very, very exciting.
Something to bearing in mind, and I think the culture is being stamped out, but cricket, just circling back to what you said at the very start of the conversation, talking about the underhanded racist comment that was made to you about the bombings, it got me thinking about the culture of cricket, where it was once at and where it is right now. And I feel that your brand is a breath of fresh air. And I do honestly feel that racism, I think it's always going to be there in some kind of form. I don't think you can ever get rid of it. But I do think it is slowly being pushed out because it's just not accepted as it once was back in the day. But racism, there was even cricket sometimes is in the public domain, in the news, in the media, for the wrong reasons. And I think two of the wrong reasons is sometimes the racism, things that happened in the past, and now it's coming to the forefront. There's been some players that have gone into courtrooms, and what the media call people of colour, they're now only speaking about it now, and they were not given a fair chance because of their race, because of their background, and because of their beliefs. And then on the other side of the negativity is the cricket fixings. You only have to type in cricket fixings into Google and it will come up with the 5 top most, high profile scandals ever in the world for cricket. So let's talk about the first thing, racism. Like, I don't know much about cricket because I've not been exposed to it. Obviously, you've been a pro cricketer and being someone who the media would call a man of colour, okay? I'm using their words, not mine. Have you been exposed to racism, and what do you know about those type of stories?
It's very interesting. So I was on Sky News for an interview. ITV, I did one as well about this cricket racism situation involving the individual. Now, I went with it in an approach that, look, I've been exposed to it, and I'll tap into something most recently happened, and I'll give you this at first hand, but I'll come to that. Yeah, I experienced it growing up a lot, but like I said, I was the person to just come away from it. I didn't sort of use that to put me down. I use it as a driving force. Like, okay, cool. You want to hold me back? I'm going to give you every reason why not. Why, leave no stone unturned, basically. I have to be very careful how I put this. So I play cricket in a certain region, which people probably know, and I've been exposed to it and so forth of recent as well. Now, because of my certain stigma and personality, or my whatever they want to put it upon me, they're using my height. I'm not tall enough to be a professional cricketer. There is a load of excuses to say why I cannot play professional cricket. Now, I was recently playing with a team and, coming on to potentially getting signed for them and so forth. And this is county cricket. And I thought things were going to be changed, especially post the interview and these awarenesses and what's happened out there. But the honest truth is, things have not. Now, I can pull up the email and read it to you and what they said. Now, just like boxing, you have a range of skills. Like cricket, you have batting, bowling, and fielding. Boxing, you're a defensive fighter, you're a aggressive fighter, you're a southpaw, orthodox, how your feet move. All of these factors, you're not just going to look at someone who can stand there and just jab someone all day, or just look out for a knockout punch. You want to see how his feet move. You want to see how his defense is. You want to see how he can take a punch, right? You're not going to just select someone because he can throw a punch. Went in, gave this trials, doing my stuff, training with a professional setup. They looked at one skill and one skill only. Didn't look at my batting. Didn't look at my fielding. Like I just stated, I've become one of the better fielders, probably especially in the southeastern area. It's known to be. Batting as well this year is in the last few years has come on massively. People know it, hitting big sixes, scoring runs against their professional setup players. They've not looked at those other two schools and said, no, Junaid, we're not going to sign you this year. What? You've looked at me one day, I've bowled for 1 hour. Yeah, you get to know me. I'm bowling just as quick as your other team members. I'm probably bowling more skillfully. I've got more skills than they have. And it's factual. I'm not saying this as it is evidently there. I can bat, I can field. These guys can't bat, and some of them can't even field because they're like 6'5" and they don't have the agility that I do. So you're looking at on one basis because they're X, Y, and Z height and they can bowl 75 miles an hour. I'm bowling 80, but I'm 6 foot, or not even 6 foot 5'10", they say. So they're looking at reasons and excuses. I'm giving this to you raw, firsthand. Now, I gave this interview to Sky News, last year. Even so, that there was a racism situation that I encountered in the first game of the season this year. I'm giving you this raw and clean. No one has heard of this, and this is the first publication of it. And this is in the club setup. And so so the way the system works here, you play Premier League club cricket, and then it's the county system, and then it's England. So they're the three barriers. So this was in the elite. This was in the Premier League, and it was the Kent Premier League. It's not hard to find out these things. And was playing in that in the first game of the season, and it got quite messy. No names given, but there was a lot of personal abuse and also racial abuse.
What sort of things did they say?
Talking about my personal life, what's been going on in my own stuff, which is exposed on social media sometimes, news outlets. You see these things, right? Bad press, they pick it up and they start going off it. Then there was talking about how, Pakistanis don't know how to play cricket. They can only play one way of cricket. You don't know, Junaid, you're this, that. And they were saying, why don't you go back to Pakistan and play stuff like this? It's like, okay, it's a bit, there's a way of sledging. Like, if you're going to sledge me, talk about my game. Oh, you can't bat, you can't bowl, these and things. When you start going personal, especially not at the professional level, you're playing, this is weekend cricket. Yes, good standards, semi-professional cricket. But if that is, where it's at, when you go on, in the professional setup, it's not as, in the international scene, it's not bad. Everyone's quite friendly with each other because you're settled and stable, right? Most of these people are making multi-millions, so you don't have no problem with other people. But it's at that line, and that's where it stops then. Because if people are copying it, if I'm copying it there, imagine the people now below me. There's all these other leagues and all these other things going on around the country. If people are copying it X, Y, and Z places, then they're not going to want to go on and play it anymore. My point, right? So hence why you see the numbers of people not wanting to play and fearful of getting involved with it, because there is so much of it. So this incident was reported the week after, and it was a 18-20 week season we have. I didn't get something back, Stephen, till 2 weeks ago. The season finished like 1 month ago, so we're talking like September, so October, November, October. It took them best part of 24 weeks to write a message, which I knew they were going to write, our investigations found nothing. I knew he was going to say that, but you could have sent that 4 weeks ago, just a letter of acknowledgement. I didn't, and this is what I said in the Sky News interview, is that the reason why I didn't want to speak about these things and don't speak about these things or don't report it is because there is no system in place for things to get, actually actioned. So there's no point. I'm going to tell these people, and then they're going to, he's a telltale, he's a snake, he's a grass, whatever they want to start calling me then. That's not my way. I didn't say anything then. I thought maybe this time things have changed. Let's see if it's changed. I want to test the system. The system's here to be tested. It's not here to be just, taken for a joke. Brushed it under the carpet. It only got risen because the chairman and of the committee and board sent an email saying, what's happening with this? And now you sent an email. What about actually getting the response through? They were very apologetic in the season. Junaid, we're so sorry. Why? Because I was sitting on Sky Sports, just scared I'm going to go and expose you again. It will get exposed. Nothing will stop me. I'm doing my own thing now, and there is no one to say to me, X, Y, and Z age, or you're this age, or you're that height, or your disability. No, I'm going to show you how cricket and sport should be actually run and structured.
So racism inside the professional cricket realms is still rife and still alive. And people are being abused, and people are feeling like they don't have a voice, and they're also feeling like they can't go on and play higher levels of cricket because they're being suppressed, basically, by the old way of thinking.
Basically so. And when you come back to when you asked me that question earlier about do I want to continue professional cricket, well, I'm good enough to walk into any county system. That's factual. You know, I've got stats to prove it. You know, since I was young as 17. I'll give you this one. I was 17 at the time, and this is in the Kent Premier League, and the Kent Premier League has been going on since like the 1860s or something, whatever. It was my mum's birthday. It was in May. It was one of the early parts of the season, and I've come down in the morning. Usually, I buy my mum a present or make her breakfast in bed or do something for her. I'm a little bit of a mummy's boy, dare I say, and she's been my support and rock throughout my whole cricketing career. She's traveled up and down the country with me, like, she was there since my birth, going back to my story as a kid. She's my everything. So everything I do is to make her proud and make her happy. She's a blessed woman. She's very fortunate to have, most things, and she's got beautiful grandchildren, and may God give her a long life, and God, bless her with more happiness. But, seeing what she's done for me was always my inspiration and motivation. Now, on that day, I came down in the morning. She made a comment before I went to the game. She goes, "Where's my present?" I was like, "Oh shit, I forgot." I said, "Okay, no problem, Mum. I'm gonna go play this game. Let me do something here, just to get a cheap way out of buying her a present." I didn't know what I was gonna go and do that day. Anyway, rock up to the ground. 17 years old, playing with fully adult men, and half of these guys are pro cricketers. Anyway, signed professionals. Some are ex-pros, and there's some big names floating around. And I'm rocking up as 17-year-old skinny, dare I say, brown Pakistani boy in Kent, who am I sort of thing. There's some big boys ahead of me, but I know in my heart that I'm better than all of these guys. Started bowling, and I took 3 wickets in my first little spell, they call it, in my first 7 overs. I was like, yeah, I'm feeling good today. And then, so where that ground was, it's like a big sort of hill, and I was running down the hill, bowling fast, and I loved it. My captain at the time, he was an Australian gentleman, amazing guy. He said to me, "All right, I want you to run up the hill." And as a 17-year-old, I was just like, "Nah, I don't want to do that. I want to keep running down the hill." He goes, "Nah." We were literally having a full-on argument in the middle of the pitch, and the umpires are like, "Guys, come." I was like, "No, I'm not going to do it." He goes, "Yeah, Junaid, you have to do it." I was like, "Okay, cool." I listened to him, and then following through, it ended up being the best bowling spell in Kent Premier League history. I ended up bowling 3 overs in that second spell for two runs and took 5 wickets. So in total in the game, I took my figures were 10 overs, 8 wickets for 16 runs. It's never been done before in Premier League history. The guy before me had 8 wickets for 18 runs. I did 8 wickets for 16 runs. To this day, it's not been broken. The guy who did it before me had it for about 5 years. Mine's coming up to 10 years now. It's not been broken. At 17 years old. And that was a year after Kent released me, saying I wasn't even good enough to play club cricket. As I said, when I was on the academy setup and whatnot. My coach said, when they released me off my academy contract, said, "You're not good enough to play even club cricket, mate." I said, "What?" Watch me. That very next year, I'd done that. Took 8 for 16. Rewritten the history books. Now my name is on top. You wanted my name to be away? I've gone and put my name on top.
Good stuff, man. So the other thing I mentioned about the fixing of cricket, I wanted to get your view on it. I know you're a young man, and it's probably something that you're not so knowledgeable about, apart from seeing it maybe inside the leagues and knowing some high-profile people that have succumbed to this type of stuff. But it's obviously started because of betting, right? And obviously money being made because of games being won or lost. Why is it such a culture low in cricket than any other sport that fixings has been so rife in the last few years?
Okay, no one's going to ever explain it to you the way I am, and I'm like I said to you this today, I'm going to give it to you raw, get it real and true. And the viewers would never have heard of this before and know why cricket is. Cricket can be played over 5 days, first of all. One match can last 5 days. So there's 5 days of betting opportunities, correct? In those 5 days of cricket, you have 100 overs per day, or let's say 90 now because of advertisement. So 90 overs a day. You have 6 balls per over. Let's do 100 overs times 6. There's 600 balls in a day. You can bet on every single ball. You can bet on where how many runs are going to be scored on the ball, how many runs a batsman's going to score, no balls, wides, what the batsman's going to do, that ball. It is insane. The level of depth within the betting industry in cricket is huge. Now, that's why coastline cricket is so pure. Like you said, a breath of fresh air. You can't really, there's not going to be so much of that within, I don't think any of it. If anything, we haven't got any betting partners. We haven't involved in any. If they come on board and they take it on themselves, that's something that almost without my control somewhat. But we don't want to be encompassing, and we won't encompass that because it's a beach cricket. Who the hell wants to bet on beach cricket per se? Yeah, in professional sports you want to bet. But because there is so many controlling factors that you can control, and you've got 11 players accessible, and when the market is as big as it is, and if you say you've got, let's say, like that 2.5 billion fans betting, okay, let's say half of the fans, 1.25 billion people betting on a match, and even if they say they're betting $1 per match, there is a market of $1 billion going into a betting field, right? Now, the big boys out there, they will basically, as it is draining the market, right? So they will have control and access of players and people to be like, okay, X, Y, and Z is going on. We know this is going to be, you have a rough betting syndicate, right, before a match. Someone's a favorite, someone's a not, who's a better player, you know what they're going to do. If you have control and you know what that player is going to do, say if he's expected to score 10 runs at the very minimum, and you go to say to him, nah, go score 5. Everyone's going to bet on him scoring 20. And he's actually got out for 5. So you've got that market, and you know what he's going to get out on. So you go and say, he's going to get 5 runs. So your odds are going to be a lot higher, right? Smart business. Yeah. So it's not even a business. It is an underground world. And that is honestly how it is. What I've seen at first hand, what I've seen through friends, family, people at first hand, experience it within and outside of sports. My own teammates I've seen go through things. It's very, very dark and nasty. And again, this is why I'm doing Coastline, because there is so much fucking shit that happens within sports that it is you cannot imagine. So I want to create something clean and pure, and where people just listen, just get away. If you're going to do anything dodgy, whatever, man, we're just here to have a good time. No fitness testing here, Riva. There's no bleep test, none of this. You don't have to be X, Y, and Z fit. Obviously no one wants to have a pot belly on a beach, you know what I mean? It's natural. So it's this whole breath of fresh air, and hence why we got the people and the traction that we're able to do, because it's something that is without the realms.
Yeah. So in the betting world and in the fixing world, there is almost a mafia element to it, where they are literally controlling what goes behind the scenes. There must be threats to certain players. There must be threats to certain clubs that if you don't do this, if you don't pull this off, there's so much money riding on it that there's going to be some repercussions.
Of course, there's stories of it. There's people's members have gone missing. There are people trying to seek asylum here because if they go back home, because they didn't complete a bet. And, for example, now, you understand now, if that individual who was set to score 5 runs, so now you've told me, Steve, I have to score 5 runs this game. But I forgot. Maybe I've scored 8, but he's put his money down on 5. This, Don, dare we say. Or I've gone and scored 25 because I want to play for like you sort of thing. I want to do what I'm going to do. That person who might have put $1, $2, $3 million on that, or maybe 100, who knows what they're putting down on these things. He wants that money back now. That money's gone. Yeah, he might be making it elsewhere, but that person's accountable for that. It was a plan. It was a sense of trust. You've broken a person's trust. And if you break, these underground mafia worlds are not a joke, and they will go on trust, loyalty, and respect. If you mess around with these people, there is no forgivingness, and it's not a joke, because that is just the realities of the world, and people don't understand it. You see it in movies, you see it in things. There's cricketers who've tried to come and seeking asylum here from even Pakistan recently. A couple of years, about 5-10 years ago, was a wicketkeeper. He got done very hard, and they said, if you come back, your whole family's dead. He's like, shit, man, like, that's not a joke. And it was a reality. It's not a joke for some people. And That is the scope and the reality of how big things are. And it's not just within cricket though. That's the thing. Yeah, cricket is a targeted sport for it, but it happens across all sports, boxing, football, all of these things, some people are earning X amount, and you wonder, how is this even capable to pay this person that much? So yeah.
It's just like when you think of cricket, you don't actually think, because like you would say more, just because of the pure nature of something like boxing or MMA, you would say it's a violent sport, there's violent people behind it, there's a lot of violent money being made, it kind of fits the profile. And it does probably happen. There's been plenty of stories about, I'm not going to name any names, but like loads of big brands out there. Some of them are not here now recently, and they've had to move on. But in cricket, you're like, nah, it's like, it's quite a friendly atmosphere, friendly environment. I mean, if you look at even football, you have to have Man United and Chelsea or whoever in different ends because of the violence and the rivalry. But a lot of the time in cricket, you could be sitting with the opposing supporters and it's totally fine. But to work out or to see there is this underground mafia culture which are pulling essentially the purse strings, it's quite a scary thing. This brings me on to my next point, which we were speaking about before the podcast, which is about sports enhancing drugs, which is happening across multiple sports at the moment. Don't really hear so much about it in like soccer, football at the moment, and maybe some other sports, but I've got no doubt that it's probably happening, but they've worked out ways to mask it. And our conversation started because we both like and adore boxing. And you asked me a question about Conor Benn, and I gave you my view on it. And I think more and more sports people are working out that you can get away with blood doping, sports enhancing drugs, but there's a way to mask it in order to not be detected and then carry on. And sadly, something's happened where either kind of mistakenly taken something or he didn't use the right masking stuff. Who knows? It will come out in a wash eventually. It's a bit of a scary time because these things can be quite life-threatening, can be quite dangerous, certainly when you're playing in contact sports. So anyway, going back to it, so making a connection with mafia, putting money, big money, millions, there's tens of millions, hundreds of millions on these games, and then also the connection with sports enhancing drugs to make sure that these bets are pulled off. How rife is that in the world of professional cricket, sports enhancing drugs?
Like you said, you've nailed it on the head there. It's a big, dark world, and this is where obviously my business element came from. It that I want to break that sort of norm. It will continue, it will never change. We won't be able to change the world of professional sports and the competitiveness because, as you know, as an athlete, if you want to make the big money, you got to be in that 1%. You got to be the best in the world or your best in your country, and you got to be doing freaky things. And sadly, some people get into that frame of mind that, we need to obtain these sort of, drugs and whatever. And hence why now, you see a little bit of, drug testing coming a bit more prominent and a bit more deeper in that sense. Cricket is huge for it. Now, every sport, I think, has an element of it. Now, I think you look at some boxers, you start looking at their physique and how they build and the way they move. You think that could be questionable. Some footballers, the way they move and the way they play, you could question some of those things. And look at. I will give you an example of a cricketer. There's a few people who broke the 100-mile-an-hour barrier. Shoaib Akhtar per se. He's a great gentleman. One of my idols. Have the most respect for him, and he's a great cricketer. Now his journey, he was, again, against all the odds, wasn't and shouldn't be able to bowl 100 miles an hour. He had a double jointed elbow, he was flat footed, and he was quite slim when he came onto the scene. Wiry kid, fiery in his bowling, quick, bowling about 90, 95, 96, maybe hit 97 a few times, but hit a bit of a plateau and barrier. A few years go by, you start to see this guy getting a bit boom, boom, boom. So, okay, he's getting a bit strong, but a bit too strong, a little bit. Or, you wouldn't question it. Maybe he's eating. People naturally don't question things, right? You think the person's individually sound. And then all of a sudden, 1898, 99, 100, 101, and consistently 898, 99. And then you see 2, 3, 4 people now touching the 99, 91, 101, barrier. 3 people hit the 100-mile-an-hour barrier. Like 5, 6 people have hit, 99. But now with the development of sports science, knowledge in the sports, money in the sports, you'd think people should be blitzing that 100-mile-an-hour barrier. People don't come close. Like, you see people get like 95 nowadays is like the top end. Like, wow, he's bowling 95. Like, wow. When I was watching cricket growing up, bowling 95 was slow. Like, you was touching 9900. Makes you then question what was going on then, because obviously the technology that we have now is a bit different. No one speaks about it as raw and as it is as this, because people are a bit fearful to, it's like I said, it's not a disrespectful thing. It's just honesty and open truth, right? There is no harm in people's truths or realities or whatever factual things. It comes down to then entertainment and, these markets, coming back to where that, this mafia sort of side of things, who control things, the whole business side of it, this dark side, it all comes down to who. If you have the big players, you have more access, more value, more of these things. There is so much that's going on and around it. How much of it is actually being dealt with? We don't really know. They say that, like talking about the racism incident, how X, Y, Z is going to be dealt with. Did it get dealt with? Probably not. They make it out like it is. But there is also a sort of realm within this, hence why it's all a corruption, and you look at political corruption and all of these things. There is so many things that are going on out there. It's almost out of our control. We are, these are the powerhouses within the society and realms that have got the, doing those things. So then it becomes quite scary for individuals who then speak out publicly about it, because people who then do ended up, in not so good places. But, let's see.
Yeah. Crazy world out there, and I understand the pressures, because all of these sports, they start off as sports and they turn into businesses, and the people inside these businesses are sometimes forced to do what's not best for the sport, best for the business. Maybe fixing matches, maybe their players are taking sports enhancing drugs or doing things to get the big sponsors to endorse them, etc. And it's kind of a bit of a carousel. They have to keep on doing this stuff in order for the business to thrive, but in actual fact it's damaging the actual sport and the culture of the sport, which is such a shame. And hopefully with your brand, your business moving forward, you're going to bring a different air, make it fun again, make it natural, make it, focus on the sport itself rather than all the other components that can sometimes hinder the actual sport. Want to round this off by just asking you just more for something I'm interested in. You've mentioned about Amir Khan, and I'm obviously a big boxing fan. I'm a boxer myself. I know you've had contact with him before, and your kind of friendship with him. What was he like as an individual?
Yeah, he's a good guy. Family friends from many years. It started off as young as 8 years old. 8, 9 years old. I won this award at Hilton Hotel down on Park Lane.
I know it very well.
Yeah.
They got Galvin at Windows, the lovely restaurant on
beautiful.
On top
It's
there.
amazing.
2 Michelin star.
Yeah, one of my favourites. We is in the ballroom. I won this award. It was a British Asian Young Sports Personality of the Year at 8, 9 years old. And Amir Khan won the senior at the time, the main personality of the year. And in the crowd was the likes of Theresa May, Jermaine Jackson, and many, many more. To have a picture with one of the Jacksons is an honor, and to be able to deliver a winning speech. I'll send it to you later. Have a watch of it. It was a speech that I did at that age. I didn't know I was going to win the award. They sat us right at the back of the hall as well. And Keith Vaz, the MP at the time, he announced the award, and he was like, the winner of this first of this award for tonight is, there was a little pause, and it said Junaid Nadir. And right at the back of the ballroom, and then the light came on our table, and my family just looked at me and I just got up and ran to the stage. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, no one told me before you're going to win an award, or you have to go up and do this, or they told my parents. No one told nothing. So I didn't know if I actually had to go up. I just heard my name and just went running up. I was in a little tux, had a little bow tie on, and it was a bit wonky as well. I still remember. But, you know, you're 8, 9 years old, you know. And I remember walking up, and the crowd reception was phenomenal, like, in that size of that hall as well. I was like, I remember we were walking up and I couldn't hear nothing. Like, it was just like a blur, as you know. And I was just like, wow. And I remember walking up and people patting my back, and then Theresa May, she looked at me, she's like, well done, well done. And I just walked past her. I didn't know who he was, what sort of type of figure. I saw Jermaine Jackson sitting there with his table and his entourage, and he was like, they were clapping, and I was like, for me, wow, this is pretty good. So I walked up onto the stage. The girl, she gave me a hug, who presented me with the award. I didn't even shake her hand. I went straight past her. I shook the hand of the interviewer. I was like, this is incredible. And then, I sat up there and I gave a speech. And to this day, I still remember, Nitin Ganatra, who's an actor and presenter, he was the one at the event being the host. And I delivered a speech, and I still remember it somewhat. But it wasn't prepared. I just went up there and just spoke out naturally. Said, first of all, I'd like to say thanks for my sister for nominating me and putting me into this, and thanks to my brothers, my sisters, my coaches, and myself as well. 8 years old. I'll send you the video. You're gonna love it. And I'm just thinking to myself, and the whole crowd was laughing, and I'm just like, this is phenomenal. And looking back at it, and I was like, I don't even remember that. I don't, like, physically. It was so weird, and it was. Something came up over me at the time, and then carried on, say thank you for everybody voting and giving me this opportunity, and came off, and the guy was like, wait till he gives his lifetime achievement award. Like, that was a phenomenal speech. And then, after the event, I went backstage, and Jermaine Jackson was there, and all of these other celebrities, and press was there, and all of these interviews started coming into my mouth, and no one was there with me. I had no guardian. I just had, like, some people with me that they're just, like, taking me through. And I was just milking. I was loving it. It was just in my element. And then Amir Khan, after they said, look, you two, you guys are going to be the next, leading factors for the British Muslim and Asian community here. Let's partner you up. Let's get you having interviews with them. And then, throughout then, and, his cousin, Sajid Mahmood, played for England as a cricketer, as a fast bowler. So again, growing up, seeing British Pakistani wear the England shirt, I didn't know Sajid at the time, and I said to Amir at that award ceremony, I remember having the picture with him, and after I said, and I was just a cheeky kid. First time I met him, and I said, Amir, before you go, tell your cousin Saj that one day I'm going to take his place. He started laughing. He goes, this kid is crazy, man. And I had, like, Alicia Dixon come over to me and, like, take a picture, and I said, can I have a kiss, please? And she gave me a little kiss on the cheek, and, like, she goes, yes, this kid is so adorable, and I've still got these pictures, and I'm just like, I was just in my element at that time, and I gave that message to Amir, and he went and delivered it to Saj, actually. And I saw Sajid Mahmood a couple of years later as a young cricketer, probably about 12 years old, and I said, so about 3-4 years later, I said, Saj, did Amir ever tell you that there's a kid that has said to you that I'm going to take your place one day? He goes, yeah, he did. Are you that kid? I said, that's me. He goes, wow. I said, I'm your biggest fan. I'm so honored to meet you. And we sat down and had breakfast together because we was on tour in Somerset. I was playing for Kent under 13s at the time, and he was playing for Lancashire main team. And he was so nice. He'd like, yeah, come have sit down with breakfast with me. And I sat down, and I didn't even eat my breakfast. I was just like, as you are as a kid, I was starstruck. I was just looking at him the whole time, like, wow, like, are you really next to me? I was a really big fanboy of him. Anyway, coming on to my Essex debut, I was, again, when Kent released me the very next year, I got signed and I was, like, playing for Essex. On my debut, I come out of the changing room. I was batting first, we got out, and then was in the changing room. And I was the last one out. And I was rushing to the huddle, and was inside that huddle, we had some big names, like, Reece Topley, who's currently playing for England, Sajid Mahmood, who was, my player, my idol at the time while I was growing up, was in the circle, and I'm like, okay, I might probably not bowl today, because we've got about 20 overs left in the day. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna. There's no chance I'm gonna open the bowling here. They threw me the ball, and I was like, they may be checking. Like, I was just gonna have a look at it. I was like, oh, nice ball. I threw it back to the captain. He goes, no, mate, first one. I'm looking around like, there's Saj, there's these guys, there's this person. Like, me? Yeah, you first one. And in that game, I took 6 wickets. Again, something that's not been done on debut per se. Took 8 in the game. Got Saj to sign the ball. And basically that was my moment of taking Sajid Mahmood's place, because he was an opening bowler. He was the first to start and lead the attack. And I came on ahead of him. And that was my moment of taking my place. So what I say to people is, like, you know, as a kids and these people, and, you know, whoever's watching, is that, you know, manifestation belief. If you see it and you can say it and you believe it. I was 8, 9 years old. How do I know I'm going to do that? I believed it. I knew it was going to happen. I just knew it. And thank God for that. And there was a level of respect that came from their family and our families. And, you know, we went to his wedding. He came to our family wedding as well. We were in good touch. There's a lot of family love and respect. So yeah, no, amazing people.
Perfect. Mate, I've really enjoyed this interview. I'm going to ask you this very last question. My mantra to the podcast and in life is be happy, never content. You might have heard me say that a few times. If I was to ask yourself, what does be happy, never content mean to you?
Be happy and never content means one thing is value life is really simple. Now, we overcomplicate life as individuals, as humans. There's a fundamental basics to it. Having a roof over your head, having food over your tummy, someone that you can share your emotions with, whether that's one person or 5 people, it doesn't matter. That is what we look for and search for. No matter your skin color, whether you're old, able, non-able, whatever it may be, rich, poor, whatever it is, you take away all of these things. And this is one thing that I've seen traveling the world and meeting the caliber of people that I have, rich, poor, and being very fortunate at this very young age to go to the South America regions, Far East Asia, all of these places, Kashmir, you know, and see the realities of life. And everyone's purpose is one thing. So be happy within yourself, with what you have, whether it's much or so small. There's always going to be someone who has more than I or you, normal. But we have to be appreciative of even sitting down, having this conversation with you. For me to open up to these things like I have to you, it's an honor. You know, it was a great connection, very special. Be content, be appreciative of whatever you have, no matter how small or big it is, and be happy with everything that you're doing in life.
Good man. Well, look, thank you
man.
very much for your time.
Appreciate
I hope everyone got a lot of value from this. Obviously, please everyone follow this man's journey. He's on to something amazing. And be happy, never content. Please subscribe, share this with your family members and your network. And I look forward to delivering some more exceptional guests and interviews as time goes on.
In your new place as well.
In new place in Mayfair.
Good luck to that, and wish you all the best on that side.
Thank you, mate.
Take
all
care.
right,
Cheers,
perfect.
thank you.
Cool.
Cheers.